I'm your host, Shawn Geris, and today's guest is Claude Patrick, former UFC fighter and gym owner.
You got it.
Claude, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
We've known each other for a bit.
Long time, man. A very long time, man.
It started out in the combat days.
Yeah.
Yep. Back in, and I can't even, I remember maybe 20 years ago.
Yeah, maybe 2004, 3, something like that, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, going back.
Yeah, and that's before your UFC days.
Way before.
Let's talk about where it all started.
Back at combat wrestling, I was just trying to get my skills. This guy's the man in terms of the wrestling. Came with a lot of pedigree, a lot of knowledge, and people were scared to work with him. I wasn't. Always trying to learn, so hook up with the best, which he is, and learn what I could.
You know, for me, it was kind of intimidating coming into a new sport.
You're intimidated?
Yeah. Well, you know, coming from wrestling and then going into Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
You know, I remember my first day at combat. You know, out here I come in, the big police officer, and somebody.
Get him.
Yeah, that's basically it. I was a target, and people were trying to submit me. It was kind of intimidating, but I kept on coming back, and then you would come in there in the classes, and you were pretty smooth.
I'm trying, man, but you know, do what I can.
Yeah. So let's talk about what got you into it. Like, what got you into mixed martial arts?
Same as everybody else. Royce Gracie, UFC 1, 2, 3, 4. Watching the little guy choking people out, taking them down, being able to beat much bigger opponents. I was always into fighting, so it was cool to see, and I had an opportunity to learn it. So I said, all right, let me go with it. There was a gym called MAFA, kind of like the first mixed martial arts place. You know those guys at all?
No, I don't.
So way back, maybe 91, 92, there was a gym called MAFA, and they went up to about 99. That's where combat sprouted out of. All the guys in the area pretty much are from there. So it was like a Jeet Kune Do, boxing, kickboxing, all the really hardcore guys. Even a wrestling guy was there too.
Yeah.
And we all trained out of there, and it just kind of sprouted. Yeah. Before the MMA boom, just a bunch of nuts training in a basement. And funny enough, that's the same building I'm in now with my gym.
Really?
Yeah.
Where's your gym now?
Dixie and Dundas.
Okay, is it the same one that I helped coach at? Is that the same one, or is it
No,
moved?
so now literally Dundas and Tompkin, right at the intersection of Tompkin and Dundas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And how is the gym doing in this COVID?
Gym's going phenomenal right now. It's wild. Like, people have been waiting to get out and do something active, and now it's so busy. Like, if I had all my old people come back, plus the people that are there now, I wouldn't know where to put them.
Really?
So don't stop coming, though. Keep coming.
And what's the name of the gym?
Elite Training Center. Yeah, nothing
Still
changed.
the same.
Same
Nothing
thing.
changed. Great. So let's talk about growing up in you're not Toronto, but you were in Mississauga.
Mississauga's
In the
finest,
GTA.
yes. Born and raised, yeah.
Okay, how was growing up in that city?
Pretty good. Mississauga's a nice multicultural community, safe. You know, everything is good there. I can't complain about it. Yeah.
And when you were in high school, how was high school for Claude Patrick?
Pretty nondescript. Went to Port Credit, went to TL, a couple schools in the area, but nothing too crazy. I've been more or less below the radar.
Straight to fighting right after that?
I know, college, working, you know, it wasn't a thing to do because there was no fighting. You're just doing it because you loved it, right? It's kind of like, could you go and be a professional fighter? No, there's no money there.'re not going to fight Royce Gracie. But eventually you did get to the level doing it, so it kind of worked out, just perfect timing.
Yeah. So where did you start MMA? What organization? I think it was it the Montreal organization?
Yeah, I fought in UGC first. There was a thing called UGC. In Montreal, did a couple fights there. Then I realized Montreal was a little bit crazy. I went out west, which was a really good move.
Okay.
Cross country, took off to Alberta, did some work over there. Came back to Montreal, went to the States, had a knee injury, you know, knees, wrestling, both times.
Yeah.
ACL, and then did my IFL run, and then made it to the UFC.
You know, people hear the UFC right away, and they don't think of all the hard work that you did prior to that.
Tons, yeah.
You know, and you're talking about, you know, low level MMA fights.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the gym every day is a fight. Actually, you're training. That's more of it than anything else, right? Your injuries, the wear and tear comes in the gym. The events, you're kind of happy to finally be there. I'm going to get a couple bucks to fight. Really good. You know, I get out and get to test myself, and I can stop holding back, and it's fun, right?
Yeah. And how much did you make your very first fight?
Oh, you didn't even want to know. $300, and I was flying high. It was $600 to win, 3-3. So I was the king of the world. Yeah.
Wow.
But I saw, you know, Justin Bruckman.
Yes.
I saw Bruckman's check, and it was $6,000 as $6,000.
Oh, really?
And I was 22 at the time, or 21. So I saw that. I'm like, I'm retired. I'm going to fight 3 times a year. I get 18 grand. I don't have to work anymore. I'm done. You know, like, in my mind, I had just retired. I'm like, that's it.
That's what you're going to do.
That's it.
So you're sold and motivated just from that one check.
$12,000. If I can make that 3 times a year, I'm good. How times have changed.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So stepping into the cage the first time, how did it feel?
I've always been pretty calm, no big deal.
Yeah.
Just, I'm happy to be there because you did all the work. You're injury free. You finally get to go and do your thing. So it's cool. Every day the grind of training and training camp and cutting weight, no fun. So that's the tough part.
I remember cutting weight for one of our high school championships, and we were supposed to make weight both days.
Oh, wow.
I cut for the first day, didn't make weight the second day, and it was probably the longest drive home from Windsor I've ever had with my father.
You had to cut same day and then wrestle the same day?
Yeah, you had to cut the night before,
Okay.
and then you wrestled, and then
Do it
you had
again,
to cut that night. You had to make weight that night, and if you didn't make weight, you had to cut. And I didn't make weight because I had zero experience cutting weight, and I didn't make weight, and I got disqualified because of that.
They don't do that. They don't do that anymore.
You know what? I've been so far removed from OFSA. I have no idea what it is. I think they did go back to a 2-day tournament, but I don't think they do that weighting because it's hard on the athlete.
That's rough on everybody. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. You're gonna get guys. Some of the best athletes not making it. You do make it, but you're not 100%. You're not going to get the best performance out of them. So.
Yeah, and at that level too. I mean, you don't know how to properly cut weight. You don't know what's the
diet.
hazards.
You're running with the bags on.
Yeah, I mean, you probably would have done that yourself,
for
right?
sure, yeah.
But it was back then, and we weren't educated. There had been deaths with, some wrestlers in the States, later on after my wrestling career I heard about, but I guess that was creatine and other diuretics.
Dehydration, all this stuff, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So very dangerous, but when it's done right, and it's okay, but when it's not done right, it can be hazardous.
Yeah, I want to see how it goes. Like, there have been some talks, not in Olympic wrestling, but other sports getting rid of the weight cutting, just let guys go at it.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting because I think you'd have a better overall performance in terms of the fights, and
Yeah.
you both sap each other, both cutting weight, both tired. Why do it? Just like go your way.
Yeah. Well, it's in jiu-jitsu, in competitive jiu-jitsu, they have the one open division, right?
Yeah.
Where you don't have to be any weight, you just fight on skill on its own.
Some guys do that, not many, because the bigger guys are pretty much going to dominate it. Some guys do pull off, some hat tricks as the lighter guys, but for the most part, it's bigger guys doing that.
Yeah, I never wanted to go into those because I was kind of worried about the little guys having those tricks.
It's about taking you out. You're like, what happened?
Yeah. What was that?
Yeah.
So after your first MMA fight, you get into the next one. Which one is that?
UGC again.
Yeah.
So that was my loss, my second overall loss. So I lost that fight, supremely overconfident. I was like, I'm going to make the $6,000. Supposed to fight a guy who I luckily didn't fight. It was Drew McFedries, who was a Pat Miletich team guy.
Okay.
So Pat Miletich, I didn't know the game at this time. I thought I was the A side. No. The promoter was bringing up the Pat Miletich guys to beat up the local Canadians. So easy fights for them and Monty Cox and those guys, right? So I was supposed to fight a guy named Drew McFedries. No, that's who I did fight. Anthony Fricklin, who would have killed me in hindsight, but he fought in the UFC instead, and I fought one of his teammates. Almost beat him, but I got tired. He won decision, and after that, I went back to the drawing board. Like, I got to learn how to wrestle, I got to learn how to strike, learn how to cut weight, all that good stuff, and it was a good experience overall.
Yeah, the mental aspect of sport. You talked about being overconfident. I can remember. Again, here's another OFSA story, but going into OFSA, and we used to have this Ontario Wrestler. It was a magazine that would come out, and all the kids would be like,
who's in it?
But they had predictions.
Yeah.
So they had
nice.
OFSA predictions. So you'd read, and I think it was Sammy Singlet, the guy was called. So he had predicted me on being one of the top guys, winning OFSA that year. So I went into OFSA, and I was pretty cocky. So I get into the first match, and I'm thinking, I'm going to win this pretty easy.
I was in the magazine. I was in the magazine.
Yeah, I was in the magazine. And you know what? I find myself losing 7-0.
Wow.
And, by the time I had scored more and more points, and this was probably, I think, halfway into the match, too, 7-0. The score was 9-6. After that.
You just woke up, huh?
They just woke up. So, I knew at that point, I really screwed up. I screwed up. I wrestled my way all the way through the tournament, the third and fourth, and I ended up meeting the same guy in the third and fourth.
Smash him?
12-0.
There you go.
For me.
Yeah,
so it's such a big...
Mental's everything.
Yeah. What did you do to prepare mentally?
You know what's amazing? It was actually your guy, Randy Couture. He had, I read an interview about autonomic training with him. Something he did at the Olympic Training Center. And me being the researcher that I am, I just dug down this rabbit hole and found a good book on a Soviet mental training system they had, kind of like, not self-hypnosis, but a way of priming yourself for performance in events. And it really, really, really works. That's something that helped me to this day. Like, it's amazing, yeah.
So what would you do?
I can't give you the trade secrets, man.
Oh no.
I can't give you. You got to call Randy.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty much regulating your state. You know, if you're too excited, like, you know, a lot of guys are pumped up.
Yep.
Some guys are sleepy before, they're kind of like reserved and in the shell. Some guys are too excited, they need to calm down. So you've got to be in that optimal performance state and building triggers and cues to kind of bring that about, whether it be, you know, hitting the back of your head or clicking your fingers or jumping up and down, whatever it is. But getting in that mental state that you practice in, and you can perform better.
You talked about Randy Couture. Was there any other fighters that you kind of looked for guidance or looked for knowledge?
Skills, I mean, for sure, a lot of coaches and trainers and guys like that, but I'm not really like a fanboy of fighters per se. He's one of the few guys that I was more of a groupie.
Yeah.
Funny enough, like not really the groupie type, but I went to his gym to train, and at the time it was a big deal. Like I did pretty well, so he knew who I was working there, Trig and those guys, but he called me stud, and I was like, oh man, I can't lose, man. Randy called me stud. It didn't make a difference. He just didn't know my name.
Yeah.
He called me stud because he didn't know my name, but in my mind, it's like, oh, I'm up there, right? So I'm a stud. I'm going to go and do my thing, and won my fight, so it was good.
Nice. Where was the gym at the time? Was it Team Quest or was it
No,
Team Raw?
in Vegas.
Yeah, that's a big facilities.
Yeah, I mean, I think they might have moved or something. I'm not even sure, but it was a pretty big gym now.
Yeah, last time I was there, it was off the strip. Yeah. So I think it's still in that spot.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but as far as I know, I haven't been back to Vegas in a long time.
Me neither.
Yeah, for obvious reasons. So being with Randy and him kind of watching you, I mean, he's at that time, I'm assuming he was the man.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he was, I think he might have been retired at the time, but just knowing his pedigree and the work that he'd done and like at the age he started and what he did up to the level, up to retirement, just the highest, one of the most regarded fighters.
Yeah. I remember going into his gym, just walking in, and there he is in the octagon. I think there's an octagon there where the matted area, and he's just fighting somebody else. He's sparring with somebody, and he's kicking the snot out of this guy that he's working with. But I'm sitting there, it's like a UFC event for me.
Watching him work, man.
Watching him work. It was kind of neat for you to be in his gym. At the time, kind of like a kid in the candy store, maybe. Or
well, and not so much because I'm not really like I'm a student of the arts, but not a fan of the guys because they're my competitors and peers.
Yeah.
But he's kind of like a guy above that. If I was watching Royce Gracie, same sort of deal. Oh, wow, there's Royce, right? So those guys are the legends. The rest were just mere mortals, and everybody can get it, right? So
yeah. And did you end up speaking with him about anything about your fight?
No, didn't even see him after the fight, nothing like that. But just training, like in the practices and stuff at the gym.
Tapping him for knowledge at all?
As much as I could, but he wasn't like teaching class or anything like that. But just he'd flow by or come in or out. But it was at a weigh-in here, and I was on the scale, and he came by. It's like, hey, stud, how's it going? I'm a stud. Okay, there you go.
Nice. Yeah, he's such a personal individual. He's
nice
actually
guy,
one of my favorite MMA fighters, not because of what he's done, but because of the personality.
Yeah, just he's not out there like super celebrity, even all he's accomplished. He's not above talking to you. Just a really solid guy.
Yeah, similar to yourself.
Yeah. Why, thank you. This guy.
So other than, after those fights, you kind of progressed to bigger venues, right? Yeah, the one in out west, was it the Hard Knocks?
It did some of that. I mean, it's kind of like you have the regional shows, which are all around the same level, and then you have the international ones that are not the UFC, which I only did one, which was the IFL, and then you have the UFC, which is the big guy in the tank.
Tell me about the IFL.
It was cool. It was a league format, actually, so it was kind of like the Toronto Dragons. You had 5 fighters, all the weight classes, and you had to fight as a team. We were the Toronto Dragons, and you'd go every 6 or 8 weeks. Kind of a flawed model because you couldn't do that due to injuries and just different stuff happening. You can't compete every 6 to 8 weeks, but they gave us a salary, and at the time it was $2,000 a month, which was more money than I could ever dream about too. It's like $2,000 a month just to train plus your purse. So that was great for me at the time. Okay. I'm retired again, and then I hurt my knee after the first fight. I won my first fight, performance of the night, ACL injury. I was like, damn. Yeah, back to the drawing board.
How'd you win the fight?
Guillotine.
Nice.
Yeah.
For those of us that don't know what a guillotine is, choke right from the.
Put the head in there and squeeze. Yeah,
it can be pretty vicious, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So going from there out west, when did you get the big call from the UFC?
They called me a bunch of times actually. Yeah. Again, I didn't I mean, it's not that I didn't realize it, but wisely I took my time.
Yeah.
I got called. I was in Montreal training with GSP and Cote and those guys in Loiseau. So I was on the scene, and the TKO promoter again saw me work. He's like, hey, he's pretty good. So the UFC called me to fight Diego Sanchez. And I was like, no, I'm not fighting that guy. I'm watching this guy. He was killing people at the time. Like, he's going to run me over. I'm not ready yet. So I said no.
Yeah.
People were like, you said no to the UFC. Are you crazy? No one says no. And I told him no 3 times. Just for different reasons. Like I wasn't ready, or I was still training, or just family stuff wasn't together. And when the time was right, I got in there at the right time and did my thing.
Yeah. That's probably unheard of. Most people in this day and age would jump at that.
Yeah, they're crazy because it's not getting there this tough. It's belonging there.
Yeah.
Anyone can get there because they need fights. There's fights every weekend now. They need athletes, but most of these guys, the young athletes for the most part, some are spectacular. You know how long it takes to develop an athlete. You can't do it in 2 years or even 5 years. You can beat a guy in 5 years and be, a couple knockouts or submissions or whatever, but you're not going to be in that upper echelon. So if you really want to be there and doing something, you have to really take time to build the skill set and everything else. But guys just want to be on TV and have a magazine, or I was in the show. I wasn't about that. I'm like an actual martial artist. So for me, really want to be there and do my best, I took my time.
Yeah, because like you said, everybody wants the glory, right? And once they get to the show, doors open, they get in there, they believe that it's just going to happen for them.
No, and that ambulance is not glorious, so everybody thinks they're leaving on their own. I want to leave on my own 2 feet. You don't want to get beat up and say it's because you might lose or you might get beat up or whatever, but if you had a glaring hole in your game, that's you trying to rush to get there, that's your own fault.
Yeah, and it could be a pretty big mistake.
Absolutely, you can't play fighting, right? So you have to make sure you're taking care of all your. You see the Holyfield fight on the weekend?
I didn't, but I had heard about it was Vitor Belfort,
yes.
And he handed Holyfield his butt.
2 guys who shouldn't have been fighting. It's just a case like that. Like he's 60 something and 58. And he's no motor skills, no coordination, can barely stand, and he's boxing like that. You don't want to go into a fight in that sort of capacity. So
no, you need all your faculties. You need to be prepared.
Yeah, you might lose him in the fight, but you certainly can't go in there without him. That's not a good idea. Yeah.
And it seems like something like that would be more of an ego. They just saw Tyson do well.
Yeah.
You know what? I can step in this. I can get the TV back on me or whatever, right? And
payday too. I think he's got a lot of kids. He's got like child support stuff to pay. So
the
bills to pay.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, maybe sell a mansion or 2, right?
He's got none of that. I think his net worth was like $30,000 at one point.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah, he's not George Foreman or anything. He didn't go the route of the grill. So smart guy.
Yeah. That's too bad. But that's it. I mean, that demonstrates right there what you're talking about, the smart move that you actually did by saying no to the UFC, until you were ready. Because, like you said, some people just don't. They dangle the carrot in front of them, they're there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So once you're in the UFC and you're ready to fight, what's it like first time?
It's actually pretty good because people think it's going to be a big deal. It wasn't super a big deal in terms of like the venue.
Yeah.
But it's so much better than all the other places I fought. There was no little ghetto hotel and a cage with like a backyard fence in it. This cage is nicely rubberized. Like I stepped in the cage, I couldn't believe how nice it is. The padding is top class. The vinyl in these other shows, like out west in Montreal, is like slippery. Like if there's sweat or blood on it, you're gonna fall and hit your head.
Yeah.
This is some type of specialized high-tech, flooring. The cage is beautiful. It's huge. So like just the best of everything. So it was phenomenal.
Yeah, I remember when you had me help out, and I came into the corner you at UFC 129.
Yeah.
I was in awe because I had never been into a show that big. You obviously,
yeah, you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Your 3rd fight maybe in the UFC, or was long?
Third fight.
Third fight, and it was pretty magical for me. But you'd already absorbed that.
Yeah, but just you seen the quality of the whole setup. Like you have mats in the chain. I've been in places where they give you no mats to warm up.
Yeah.
They don't want any grappling. No mats.
I remember sitting in the change room with you, and you're warming up, and after you'd warmed up, there was Steven Seagal sitting beside us.
You know what's funny about Seagal?
Yeah.
He has the utmost respect of the high-level Brazilian guys. Like Anderson Silva really respects him.
Yeah.
When he pulled up at the weigh-in or the fighter meeting, everybody was like in awe, right? So there must be something to that.
Yeah,
I don't think he could fight his way out of a paper bag, but he's got some type of skills and knowledge for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, he was a practitioner of
Aikido,
Aikido, and you know, it's an interesting art. I mean, it's been in policing. I think we relied on Aikido for the longest time.
Joint locks and all that stuff.
Yeah, and now we've progressed into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Nice.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu seems to be, you know, if you go to any police academy, it seems to be the foundation of use of force training.
Well, that's the thing. You don't have to beat a guy up. Like, I'm getting a lot of officers to come to my academy now, just coincidentally, I guess, because they want to supplement their training they've already done. And the magic of it is you don't have to smash a guy to arrest him or keep him safe from himself or whatever you want to call it. You don't have to punch him in the face. You can handle him quite easily. Like, if you get somebody who's never grappled before, you know, they're like a dance partner. You can throw them around, no problem. Put them in the car, handcuff them. Like, they have no chance, right? Versus, what do I have to do? I've got to knock this guy out and handcuff him? It doesn't make sense. So in today's day and age where it's so important to minimize the use of force, at the same time while keeping yourself safe, there's very few systems better than that.
Yeah. You know, it has been a godsend for myself, you know, wrestling and jiu-jitsu, having that background.
For sure.
Haven't had to really interact in that capacity with a lot of people. And when it has happened, when we have had to end a situation, it's been quick because, and it's under control.
They can't do anything to you. Like, what are the odds of somebody at the grocery store or some person, anyone, like just normal conflict, you're walking down the street and I don't train and you do. Some guy beating you in a grappling confrontation. There's none. Like, literally you. Like, there's no chance. Like, there's no chance. A guy who doesn't train would never, like, I could be 7 years old, an untrained guy's not going to beat me. So, you know, maybe they could knock you out with a punch, but that's, you know, anybody can do that. But if I get my hands on them, there's no way they're going to be able to do anything. Not to say I'll beat him, but until help comes or, you know, whatever it is, you take off, it's a much safer situation. So it's amazing.
Yeah, it's been, like I said, it's been godsend, and it's been great for the policing community because it does end things quicker for us, and it's aesthetically pleasing to the media. When you
Precisely.
When you can put somebody
bludgeon guy in the car.
They
don't want to see that.
Exactly. So I mean, the media just the cameras don't roll if the person's in the car real quick and he's not bleeding. But if he's bleeding and he's screaming, and the media is playing
not
that
a good look. So how do you guys modify the training? Obviously, because like I have a thing called core jiu-jitsu, which is more fight-based, and we deal with strikes, closing at distance, ground stuff. That's one thing. But then, you know, the sport also grew too. So tournaments, guys going upside down, inverted guard, rules, you know, all the crazy stuff. So like, what do you guys do in terms of the training? How do you differentiate the training from the sport?
So I actually taught use of force for 5 years at our police college. So we would come up with a curriculum, and it would be, you know, a team of us that would come together and kind of, you know, say, okay, well, what we're going to use. But for the most part, I would caution people about you know, learning certain techniques, because certain techniques led to being exposed to danger. There was a few times where, you know, we were told to, you know, this would be a great technique, but, you know, I would kind of say, like, that's not what we should be doing. It leaves the officer open to injury. So you really have to kind of look at what you did. So what we started doing was building concepts, looking at concepts instead of actually moves. So, you know, with jiu-jitsu, the neon belt line was, or belly. We changed it to neon belt line because it was a great control tactic. Keeping somebody on the ground, your weight distribution is great.
There's no chance they're getting up. If you don't train, how would you get up from there? There's actually no possibility. They couldn't even turn their back if they wanted.
And you're away from the diaphragm. When that's why we changed it from
breathing
belly. We went right to belt line.
Smart,
So that's what we taught our officers there. And I had officers coming back and saying, you know, that was probably the most useful thing I've ever had, you know, when we came to a training. So it was great to hear that. You know, we developed a few techniques like that really kept their people safe. You know, we've even with, you know, with most recently, you know, the George Floyd thing. We talked to people about, you know, hand placement on the head. You know,
just crazy.
That
choke, like, it's so easy to choke someone properly, and to not know how to do it and go after like the windpipe choke, you know, can be catastrophic, as it was, right? You really choke a guy, he's out in 3 seconds, and it's a wrap.
So we don't even do chokes anymore. Like, we were there was a I think it was a letter written to the OPC by one of our command. A fellow's not with us anymore. I think he passed away. But he wrote and said, you know, he wants to outlaw chokes. He doesn't want the Ontario policing community learning that, because there's a propensity for death. When it's not done right, yes, right? But if it's done right, no. So I could see his argument. And so since then, we haven't been able to, or we don't implement chokes.
Okay.
What we do now is we train around that. So we do other submissions. And
Different
stuff like
restraints, yeah.
But I believe the RCMP still teaches chokes. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, done properly. I mean, honest, if the guy's drugged or something like that, anything that agitates him could cause him to, die. But a choke applied improperly is dangerous for anyone.
Yeah,
for anyone.
And nobody wants to be in that situation.
Yeah.
Not even a civilian. If they're in an altercation, you don't want to kill anybody. No copper says at the end, at the beginning of the shift, I want to go and kill somebody. It's just, you don't want to live with that.
Yeah.
We're out here to do a job. And get home at the end of the day, and not harm people. We were trying to help people.
Crazy story. One of my old students, I won't name him. You probably know him. He was a Peel guy.
Yeah.
And then he ended up on the ETF. Is it ETF at the airport?
Yeah. They do have. Yep.
So the ETF and some gang task force. So they went into a house, like a gang house or some type, and the guys, they surprised him, right? Guys run into the couch. Holding the guy's running to the couch. He wants to get to this couch really badly. He said, "What's with the couch?" Restrain the guy, no problem, right? After, clear the house, checked it out. Under the couch is like some type of a hand cannon, like a machine gun or something, right? So my guy's like, "Man, I thank you so much. You brought me a keg steak, a gift card. What you showed me saved this guy's life, saved my, peace of mind, ton of paperwork. I would have had to kill this guy if he got to that couch.
Yeah.
I didn't hurt him. I was able to restrain him, handcuff him, put him away, no problem.
Yeah.
Because I knew how to do it properly. Yeah.
Yeah, and think about the impact of your training. What you showed him, he thanked you. He said
exactly what he said. Yeah.
Not just his life, but saved
and the other guy's.
life. So the bad guy that was running for the gun saved his life as well, and that's how powerful jiu-jitsu can be.
Huge. And as you brought up a good point, the concepts. That's something I never thought of, because two people who know it, like me and you, training is going to be totally different than you against a guy who doesn't. His reactions are totally different. They're off. Like, why are you doing that? You're turning over. You're giving your back. Yeah, that's what they'll do. But two people training as a game, an officer against somebody who is intoxicated, wants to hurt him, whatever, is a totally different beast, right?
And when you're coming through the academy, what ends up happening is we have to give you techniques so you can remember, right? And if you're not a practitioner,
under stress too, under the pressure, you don't have time to. This 20-point arm bar is never going to happen here.
So it has to be very simplistic, and that's when we were designing the program. What we ended up doing was bringing it down to the basics and giving it a concept so that people could take it with them and say, okay, well, this is what Geris said, or this is what the team said. We can do it, and that's what was happening. And you'd actually, when we were watching, because we would get videos, use of force videos that were from out in the community, from the back to us, and we'd analyze them. Sometimes, not always, right? You see it, people post them on YouTube.
Yeah.
And
I see some crazy stuff.
Yeah,
I see some crazy stuff on YouTube.
But we would see our guys using our techniques, the ones that we had just taught them. So we knew that things were working. And then, we could actually take those videos and we could show the officers that were actually there and say, look, guys, it's working. Yeah. And then you'd have more buy-in, right? But sometimes we bring in UFC fighters to come in,
And therein lies the problem, right? Like, if you are a UFC fighter, performance athlete, it's totally different training than against an officer with the buckle and everything else. And, you got to protect your gun. And at the same time, not hurt this guy too badly. In the UFC, I want to smash him as quickly as possible. He's wearing no clothes. I've gotten relatively no clothes too, so it's a different beast. And again, two skilled people, totally different reaction-wise than a guy that doesn't know anything. So it's pretty easy with those guys, and just a really powerful art.
Yeah.
How often do people practice? Like how much training do they do?
Can't tell you our secrets, man.
Oh, there you go. You got me. You got me. There you go. Yeah.
I wish it was a lot more than we do.
Okay.
I'm thankful that I do it on a regular basis, but like I said, it's saved my butt, and it's saved a few other officers' butts, and other people that.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think people don't think about that. The thing that you had said is, about your friend or your student, you saved his butt.
Yeah.
Because
he told me, he's like, listen, you saved this guy's life. Here's the dinner card. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And he's like, I would have had to write a novel explaining in terms of paperwork what that situation was. You just tied him up, put him in the car, no problem. Like, there's no chance of somebody who doesn't train. I mean, they can resist or whatever, but they're never going to be able to out-grapple you. It can't happen.
Yeah.
In my opinion. I mean, never seen that.
Yeah. No, it's been, like I said, it's been a godsend, and it's been great to have those skills in your back pocket, because when you are put in those situations,
Well,
man,
for you too, it's the Greco upper body stuff too. That's just magic, right? So you've got the upgrade on top of that. So
Yeah.
forget about the ground's not even going to happen because you're on your feet. It's upper body immobilization, not even touching the leg. So it's just the perfect combination. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a great, the three combination of sports, Greco, folk style, and freestyle were
Absolutely,
great for me.
for sure.
Yeah. So getting back to your fighting though, because we kind of got sidetracked.
Hey man,
a
we
little bit.
went down the good road. Who cares about fighting?
Yeah.
You just got the good stuff.
Get into the UFC, and you're there 3 or 4 fights. What is it? How many in total did you have?
I did 3 fights. I was heading into my 4th when I got my other ACL injury.
And is that what stopped you from
pretty
fighting
much.
altogether?
Well, the scene kind of dried up too because the other guys, like my main training partner, like Sean Pearson, around the same weight, good training partner, and all the supporting cast and crew. When there was no more UFC boom in the local area, they either retired or stopped fighting and moved different places. You can't really do it here locally as one guy because you need that training room with all the other guys coming in. Yeah. When there was a scene in Canada and you had the UFC, the regional shows, everyone getting ready, Toronto would get together and train, but the city being how it is, everyone's kind of separated. You can't really drive around too easy. Like here, to get to Impact to wrestle is like an hour drive. Then you can't pull that off and get to some other place to kickbox and box. So too much travel and too expensive. So people kind of went on to other things, and they retired. So I came back and like, no training. I don't want to move to the States. That's a wrap.
Yeah. There's an old saying, iron sharpens iron, and I think I heard that from Randy.
Yeah. Heard you say that a million times, actually.
Yeah. But if you don't have the people in your room, people don't realize it. They think I can go to a gym, I'm going to get better. No. But it's that constant. When you say iron sharpens iron, you need somebody there that is either at your level or is it above your level.
For sure.
Because you don't grow.
Yeah. I find that guys less than and equal to is at all levels. But you do need that somebody above you too, because otherwise they're not going to make you adapt, right? So, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, they make you better.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was taught in, Willie Gadsden, one of my coaches at Eastern Michigan, he would say, when I get in there, he'd say, find the toughest guy in the room and go after him. Yeah. And at first you'd kind of like, what do you mean?
Why? Yeah.
Why do I want to do that? I want to survive. But that was one of the things that Gadsden really pushed on me. And, so I would go to practice and I'd get banged up, but it made me better.
Then when you go to game time,
it's,
cakewalk for you. So,
I got really good at my collegiate matches, but when I came back to do freestyle, my gut wrenches weren't so great. I could escape from anybody, but
you never had a chance to do it to them, right?
Yeah. But it's the whole thing about having those practice partners. And you had to go to Montreal at times, right?
Well, you know what? The training here, that's the thing. When I came back, I had you, Raf for boxing, a couple guys from Muay Thai, and my jiu-jitsu. Bocek was doing the jiu-jitsu, and I'm like, it's actually better here than it is over there. I was blown away. I came back from a vacation, just training camp there. Yeah. And I came back to train. I was like, I've got better work here. But the hype is, the buzz. George was a champion at the time. There's Dave and George, and they're really good, and a couple other guys really good too. But in terms of strict individual skill set and volume of training, it was actually better here. Yeah. Nobody would believe me if I told them, but it actually was,
Well, and I think George had it good because the Montreal Wrestling Club was right near his gym too, right?
For sure. That was very big there.
Yeah, Montreal at the time, I believe.
Zilberman was running the practice,
Victor Zilberman, and he was a tough character.
To say the least.
Yeah.
Call me a loser.
Tell me about that.
I took his, not disrespectfully, but what happened is I went there. And I can wrestle a bit. I managed. I'm not a wrestler by any trade. I don't know I don't even know the rule set, to be honest.
Yeah.
Probably be disqualified in 30 seconds. Stepping back and not circling, not going forward. More or less a cheater. But I can shoot pretty well.
Yeah.
So I've taken down essentially everyone I've ever trained with at least one time. Fairly consistently. And I'm good work for guys, right? So I'm there and I'm training. He doesn't know me and I don't know him.
Yeah.
And I don't know he's this guy, his son, David.
Dave, yeah.
So I take Dave down with a double or a blast double. I take him down. And in wrestling, guys will concede the takedown a little easier than in jiu-jitsu because they'll go to the parterre position.
Yes.
I find they're like, oh, I'm just going to. So what is it? You don't want to go to your back because then it's a wrap? Or why do they do that?
Well, freestyle. It's you just.
they'll kind of just go to that position
Yeah.
instead of going to their back and scrambling.
So you're supposed to, in freestyle, basically, when you get taken down, you want to brace yourself and just not give up any points. So anytime you get exposed to the back, it's
Okay.
points. Now, in folk style, which is primarily done in the U.S.,
They're
in
fighting
the
for their
collegiate-
life, yeah.
Yeah, it is. You can expose to your back. You can you escape. You have to work on the bottom. Whereas when you're on the ground, you just kind of stall.
So maybe I'm not as good as I thought then. I'm like, I'm taking everybody down, but they always go to this position.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like they're not fighting as hard as I know they can.
Yeah.
And they'll settle for that and then smoke me after. But anyways, took him down, and his dad hit the roof.
Yeah.
He sat in a corner. He's like an older guy, right?
Yep.
He's retired now. He'd sit in the corner in a chair and never get up. Like, barely say anything to you unless you're one of the A guys. Everybody comes in, shakes his hand, whatever, go do your warm up.
Yeah.
And then you start wrestling. So from the corner, this guy's screaming, "You let this guy take you down. He's a loser. He's not even a wrestler." I'm like, what? I'm like, thanks. He's like, no, I didn't mean it bad, but I'm really not a wrestler.
Yeah.
But he wasn't having that, so you can't take his son down.
Yeah.
So
He's trying to motivate his own son.
yeah, good times, man.
Yeah. No, that's
A lot
great.
of tough guys there. Gia Sasuri was there. He was there.
Yeah.
A bunch of guys. Nick Johnson.
Yeah.
Nick, who's an animal, he was there. It was me, George, and David. After a couple months of practicing, I'm there fairly religiously. I'm a regular fixture, so he knows me now.
Yeah.
And this guy comes in, and I don't know who this guy is. He comes in and he absolutely destroys George. Takedowns. Like, whoa, who's this guy?
Yeah.
Okay. So now Zilberman, the older guy, puts me, George, and Dave to kind of like Shark Tank the guy.
Yeah.
He destroys us.
Yeah.
I'm like, who's this guy, man? Like, who is he? He beat everybody, no problem. And then I talked to him, I go, what's your name? Introduced himself. Okay, I went home, I was really amazed.
Yeah.
Maybe a year or two later, I was at Extreme Couture in Toronto, and he pulled up.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, that's the guy. So we talked to, really great guy. I guess he was a Romanian.
I think it's Norwegian.
Oh, okay.
I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some type of high-level Greco guy, but a
Yeah.
phenomenal upper body wrestler, without a doubt.
Yeah, no. I remember him coming to Extreme Couture and working with him. He was a smaller guy than me, but he was technical, very technical. And then, there was people out there that kind of criticized his pedigree, but if you actually step on the mat,
I've seen it.
Yeah.
I felt it.
Yeah.
I saw it with no hype. Like, I didn't know who he was, and I just saw him beat the two best guys I knew at the time, plus myself.
Yeah.
And like, get him. I was trying to fatigue him, and not even close.
Yeah, and you're saying this was, when you're talking about one of the best guys, you're talking about George St. Pierre.
Yeah. But it's strictly wrestling practice. There's better wrestlers,
Yeah,
right? So even in the Montreal Wrestling Company, there's better wrestlers than him, but David is one of the better guys and bigger.
Yeah.
Myself and him, and he just, no problem.
No problem. Yeah. He's
Interesting times.
He was a technician. Yeah. So you went to Montreal. You come back to Toronto. You got all these guys now to work with. You got Bocek. You got who else were you working with?
Pearson was there. All the other, there's huge amount of guys in terms of the B-level shows, but UFC guys was the three of us pretty much.
Yeah. And who else was maybe helping you out at that time?
Geez, I don't want to name anybody and leave the rest of the guys out.
Okay.
Too many guys, yeah. Like, just even from the practice, like the jiu-jitsu crew, you have all those guys. Some of those guys will put on some gloves and spar a little bit. Then the kickboxing guys, same thing, and the boxing guys. So, just over 100 people.
Yeah.
And then the MMA thing just kind of died, and just like, that's it. No more 100 guys. Now,
Yeah.
you can't even buy sparring partners.
Yeah.
So,
And why do you think it died?
George retiring, probably. And the frequency, it's kind of like the show goes somewhere, and it's the big thing.
Yeah.
Toronto was the mecca of mixed martial arts for a while. But I don't think Toronto's really a sporting city except for hockey, per se. Like, they're kind of fickle. Hockey's just part of the culture. It's always going to be there, win, lose, or draw. And also the Raptors now, too.
Yeah.
But other sports is not really that big. So the pro wrestling was a big thing here for a bit, no longer.
Yeah.
MMA was huge. 70,000 people in the Sky Dome, no longer. So they moved to, Vegas has always been the hub. Then they were in Dubai. And now they're going to Africa's like the next one. So they kind of go wherever it's hot.
Yeah. And I think, with that up here, you're saying, George retiring. Also, I found, the cards were oversaturated. That's just my personal opinion. One of the reasons I stopped watching is because I didn't know anybody in the cards anymore, and they used to have it where they'd have two headliners, and then back in the Rich Franklin days.
And therein lies the same thing I was saying. There's so many guys fighting now that you can't know them all, and it takes a certain amount of time to develop these guys. So they're almost like the cannon fodder. They're going there, and if they ever make it to one of those guys, they're doomed for the most part. So they're not really going to be there for any extended period of time. Where the real guys, everyone's real, but the aces, the top five, are there, and they're the fixtures.
Yeah. I mean, people are just, like you said, they're just kind of like, I want to get in there, and then they don't realize that the top tier guys are just going to eat them alive.
That's it. You're fighting Yo Romero. You're like, what?
Yeah.
I didn't sign up for this?
Yeah.
You want to be a fighter or not? Like, they give you that speech. You want to be a fighter? I never want to say no to that. I'm there, so I'll fight anyone who's there.
Yeah.
But if I'm not ready to do that, I'm not going.
Yeah. And that seems like you approach that as a business sense, like a business sense to your fighting. Like you realize that you're protecting your assets.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And also, you just don't want to. You don't want to be a fake fighter. Like you want to be there and really belong. Otherwise, you're faking injuries and you're ducking out. And this, if I'm there, I'm ready to go with anyone who they bring. Otherwise, just don't go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's that should be a lesson to a lot of these guys. And I don't think maybe these guys don't have the. They
don't have the belief in themselves. They don't realize that ultimately they need you, not you needing them. They can't have shows without the fighters.
Yeah.
If you really are that good, they'll be back, right? So, I was doing well with everyone I work with. So, and I had good positioning in terms of promoters watching me. So, I knew. And also, if I fought earlier, I wouldn't have been part of that whole UFC boom in Toronto, which hit perfectly, like perfect timing. They needed Toronto guys. Here I am.
Yeah.
If I was in Wyoming, I wouldn't be on the card, right? But I was in Toronto and it hit at the right time, so it worked out great.
Yeah, and UFC 129 was probably the biggest venue, I think
so, yeah.
UFC at that time.
Just packed, yeah.
And you were right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it worked out quite well.
Yeah. And how did they exploit your Toronto, background when you were here?
They didn't do too much. I had a sponsor actually at the time, the guy who owned Wild Wings.
Okay.
I guess he managed to get us on every magazine and newspaper in town. So I was everywhere for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Front page of the Star, second page, third page. Like, wow.
Yeah.
Amazing, yeah.
I still have the shirt that the Tap Out gave us.
Yeah.
And it's got Wild Wings on there. And every time
Uncle Ricky, man.
Yeah. Every time I'm out there, I go, who put the
Wild
Wings on your shirt? That shouldn't be there.
He's pivotal. He's pivotal. That guy was a really big sport booster. He was also sponsored for Nevin Pikich. He's a guy who fought Tyson Fury in boxing.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's a really big fan of sports. So
yeah.
Thank you, Uncle Ricky.
Yeah. How hard was it to get sponsors?
Super easy at the time. That's another thing that changed too. They changed the sponsorship rules. You could go to like a pizza store, Tommy's Pizza, tell them, hey, give me $20,000, put on your shirt, you're good to go. Yeah. Now you have to go with the Reebok deal or whatever else they have. So there's no individual sponsorship.
Yeah, because it used to be that either your shorts or your shirt was like a billboard, right? You would find a sponsor, and then they would go on, your back or your whatever it was, and then they'd be front and center in the UFC, which was great for your sponsors,
and huge for you. Like if you could get the right guy, somebody with a lot of money, just write it off as a tax write-off. That's great for you. Some guys 100. I got to the show hearing about Tompkins, Homnick.
Yes.
Sam Stout.
Okay.
They were getting $20,000 for tap-out shirts. Mm-hmm. And that's what I heard. That was a sponsorship, $20,000.
Yeah.
So when my fight came up, I was expecting $20,000 in tap-out too. I got a $500 check and almost killed my manager. I was like, "What are you doing, man? You're trying to steal? Either you're really bad at your job or you're stealing money. Either way, you've got to go."
Yeah.
And I'm cutting weight. I'm just really irritable.
Yeah.
So after they explained to me, like, "No, listen, this is it." They gave me $2,000 to go. No, all the sponsors got together and said, instead of competing, because you're going to give 20, I'll give 25, I'll give 30, they got smart and said, you know what, guys, $500 across the board, pick whoever you want. So they all save money. They're all going to get on anyway. So, people just adapt and learn. But it was a good time. I missed that. I missed that wave.
So one thing I wanted to talk to you about is adversity. Dealing with adversity. And my father's journey in his wrestling career, he came across all sorts of adversity. He blew his knee. Just before when he got to Oklahoma State on a scholarship, he got a scholarship. First year he blows his knee.
Oh gosh.
His grades, when he's ready to start, his grades are so he can't start. He has kids. They start to kind of.
I'll get you.
Yeah, that'll get you.
Yeah.
So all of these things, and I don't want to equate kids to adversity, but I'm saying when you're goal oriented, right?
You're going in one direction, kids will take it another way for sure.
Yeah. So you have these bouts, and I'm just wondering about through your athletic career or whatever, how did you deal with adversity?
I've just always had laser beam focus, like I wanted to get to where I was going, kind of a bit of a nut. Like I wouldn't advise anyone do it like some kids now are like, I want to make it to the UFC. It's time and place, and you have to realize it's a, 10-year plan, something like that. It's not a 1-year deal. Even if you do get there, don't do it. So you're going to have to do certain work. You're going to have to focus on that specifically and really put other things to the side. So I was really focused on that, and once that waned, I always said I would leave. Yeah. And that's kind of why I did. Like, they called me to fight, and I said, hey, I'm making an omelet right now. I was ordering an omelet.
Yeah.
In this diner on Kipling in Lakeshore area. And I wanted to get my order just right.
Yeah.
Don't put too much green onions in there. And the guy called me, Joe Silva.
Yeah.
I got, let me call you back. I'm getting my lunch together here at breakfast. And after I hung up, I'm like, I got to retire.
Yeah.
I'm talking about breakfast. Before I would have been like, I'm there, Let me get back to you. I got things going on. Like, a lot of guys will take just a paycheck.
Yeah.
Many good fighters, we both know,
yeah.
make a lot of money, but they're not in it. So if you're not really there, it's better to go on to different things. And you got a lot of skills you can take advantage of.
Yeah. Yeah. When you blew your knee the first time,
yeah.
Did you have any thoughts of like I'm done here, I'm quitting?
No. I felt luckily at the time it was at Guelph practice wrestling, and blew my knee. And what happened? They have an insurance plan. They're going to cover your health care, right? So, and also you get health care here, but they give you faster scans and surgery and all that stuff. So that worked out. And I lost my spot on the team, and the league was gone by the time I got back. But I was able to, train myself back up to health, and I had good therapy and stuff like that.
That's good. Good support and whatnot. Now, that's what you need sometimes when you're facing adversity, right? A good support system. Because if you don't have that support system, then you
pivotal. You can go in all sorts of directions, right? You can get depressed or fall off or get in some other direction. So, a good support system definitely is a key.
What advice would you give to somebody coming into the sport?
Take your time, get the right coaches, and listen to what your coaches are saying. I think because there's not a lot of MMA coaches per se.
Yeah.
Maybe now because the initial generation of guys, some people switched to coaching, but before there wasn't. There was a wrestling coach, a kickboxing guy, a jiu-jitsu guy. Don't go in and say, I'm doing it this way because I'm going to be doing strikes. I can't wrestle because I'm going to do strikes at the same time. Learn what they're telling you, and then you're going to combine it in your practice or when you're going to go put on the actual event. But the big mistake is to go in there with the idea that I'm not learning that, I'm not listening to this because it's not good for what I'm doing. Like, to show everybody the respect they deserve, and you'll make it to where you want to be.
Yeah. You know what I found with, and I've got one MMA match under my belt, but what I found, it was so hard to train the 3 different disciplines. Wrestling, came naturally, but if you ignored it, then you certainly...
Yeah, and anyone can slip for sure. You think you have it in your pocket. A lot of guys are like that. I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I don't like to practice that. I'm only boxing and wrestling. Then you get submitted, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah. And I've seen that at high levels. So one of my good friends, that fought MMA in the UFC, his wrestling slipped. I think he didn't pay so much. He was kind of, and I think you know who I'm talking about.
For sure, because I know this already. I don't have to work on it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and then he's getting taken down by people that shouldn't be taking him down. So it was frustrating to trying to learn all 3, and again, you have to pay attention to all 3 at the same equal, right?
And it's a time frame, right? It takes time. Like, if you have to learn all 3 in a period of a year, you're not going to pull it off. It's too much. But if you have a 5-year period of time and you can work on it casually, while you're working, while you're studying, and you're actually building the skills, a training camp is different than learning skills, right? Like, you want to be learning at a casual pace. Training camp is preparing, sharpening your skills, getting in shape, ready to fight.
Yeah. Tell me about the shark tanks, man.
I didn't do them too much.
No?
No, never a big fan.
No.
I think that you're below optimal, and I find that's when I usually get hurt. So if I'm super tired, and you're kind of, once in a while just for some fun, but not as a pivotal part of my practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, if you're just trying to break yourself, you often will break. So.
Yeah. And if you're doing shark tanks, you're doing shark tanks with all 3 disciplines. You're not doing just with
exactly,
wrestling.
Right? So I prefer to be fresh, have my practice good quality. When I start to fall off, avoid the injury and just stop. Every time I've been hurt seriously is injury. I was with Mike Van Arsdale. I had, that was my second one.
These names I remembering.
Yeah.
Okay.
Walked in, coach. He was coaching at that time, tired. I had a hip flexor issue, so told him I'm tired, my hips hurt. I said, you know what, give me a good 45 minutes and that's it.
Yeah.
Going with Kamaru Usman, wrestling, single leg, pop my knee. Like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me?
Wow.
Yeah.
Just pushing yourself, that's all it was. So
And also, I knew I was hurt going in.
Yeah.
But you don't want to quit. It's a fine line. You don't want to be lazy or quit, but at the same time, you don't want to push beyond where you know you should now.
Yeah. You know, I think as we get older, we become more prone to injury, one, and we have to be smarter when we train. And I think that's when we talk about Randy. You know, I'd always watch him, and I'd be in awe because, like, here's this old fella, and he shouldn't be fighting. But he does. And he was really smart about it. You know, we make mistakes. We kind of go into these situations sometimes and not thinking about it. But you know, from it sounds like when your approach was very similar to Randy's as well.
Yeah, I mean, I try to model that for sure. One lesson he taught me, really important: don't hang out in the gym.
Yeah.
Don't hang out in the gym. You come in, do your work, go home. If it's 45 minutes of good work, do that and take off. Don't be in here bumming around because then you're going to make this a casual thing for you, and you're not going to be, you know, making the most of your time. And he's 100% right about that. With my kids now, I tell them the same thing: come in, train, leave.
Yeah. Because you do have people that will hang out in the gym.
8 hours a day, they're just kind of floating. They never pick it up to a level where they're going to get anything out of it because they're just there so casually.
Yeah, you know, that's great advice, one coming from Randy, but even for you to be able to pass that on to your guys only makes a better competitor in the people that
For sure. You're hungry, you know, you left, you leave a little bit for the next day. You're hungry, you want to come back and do some more work, but if you're just like dead and dreading it, you're not really going to bring 100% the next day.
Yeah. Is there anyone else that you kind of would sponge off of, I guess?
Andre Pederneiras, for sure, the head of Novo União Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay.
He was head coach for the affiliation I was with in my formative years, so I managed to get a couple weeks of training in with him. Like pretty wealthy guy I know, paid for like a whole bunch of private lessons, needed a training partner.
Yeah.
I'm your guy, you know? So I was there every day for 2 weeks, maybe like 8 hours a day or something, like a ridiculous amount of time.
Yeah.
But just to be around the guy and see how he thought about things and make the connection too is really helpful later on.
Yeah. And then you're talking about the Toronto connection. You got Bocek as well as a partner, right? He's a very, very technical, and
Absolutely.
he's in the sport as well. How was that working with? He's a little lighter than you at the time?
Yeah, he was always the guy. I mean, even before this, we're training partners coming up because he was with Rickson Gracie and going to California and stuff. He's like the top guy in the area coming up. Yeah. Legend, so to speak. And I was just like a local guy, but I managed to train with him. Kept going back, and he shared what he knew. And if he didn't share, I'd pick it up by the feel, you know, like he's doing things a little bit differently than the other guys. And as you said, iron sharpens iron. So if you're working with him, you're going to be a step ahead of. Some people think, oh, a Canadian. Every time I train somewhere else, they're like, oh, you're not bad. Yeah. You think we live in igloos here? Like, no one has any skills because they don't realize that we have guys like that, even at that time.
Yeah.
Bringing the knowledge back and the skills, and it was good.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, and then even Jeff Jocelyn. Did you ever get a chance to go and work with him?
Not really. He was out of Hamilton, so I didn't really train with him too much. But he's a good buddy of mine.
Yeah, because he like it is, like you said, a little bit of a trek out that way, and even getting to places. You know, that's even for me. You know, living out in the West End and then having to travel out to Team Impact. That's a pain.
That's a whole day affair, right? And if you catch traffic, it's a 2-day affair. So
so you need to live near where you train.
Yeah. And just the distance. There's not really like a subway system here that facilitates it that well.
Yeah.
Location, whereas in Montreal, you can be everywhere on the subway and much cheaper cost of living. So it's good like that.
Yeah.
If you look at all the big hubs for fight camps, they're all pretty cheap, like New Mexico with Jackson's.
Yeah.
Pretty cheap, super cheap to live there. And I guess you can drive around. It's a small city.
Yeah.
New York, not so much. LA, not so much. Those are expensive places that are big and spread out with traffic. So.
Yeah. Now, your favorite workout partner?
You wouldn't know him. This guy in Brazil, Edson Shibata.
All right.
Phenomenal guy. He came here as a student. He was at Wagner Fabiano's gym.
Okay.
And I trained with him a couple weeks, and just like, you know, you meet a guy and it's the best training of your life.
Yeah.
No, everyone wanted to kill him because he was a brown belt at the time.
Oh yeah.
Or maybe a purple. I think it was a brown belt. And very rare you get a brown belt visitor at this time. And I was like a blue or purple. Purple, I think. Perfect training.
Yeah.
Right weight, right movement, right energy, and he's shooting technique at me, no muscle, and the right amount of muscle, just phenomenal. We're buddies to this day. Like that guy's like my male soulmate, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Really, really good. Like you meet somebody and you just click like great.
And how's training now?
Good. Not doing as much as I'd like to, but I've got the gym going. I'm doing more digital marketing. My SEO training is my everyday thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how I kind of managed to get my gym to be a top position in Mississauga.
Nice.
All this COVID stuff when it shut down, I said I better shift in that direction a little bit just in case anything come back. So really focusing pretty heavily there.
Oh, good. And the gym, like you said, is doing well.
Oh, doing great.
Yeah. You've got multiple members coming back, or new members coming in as well.
A ton of new people. Old members, I don't know where they are.
Oh, yeah?
Well, I know where they are, but I mean,
just hiding out.
They're kind of waiting for things to cool down a little bit. So, but in terms of people that want to train, we're really, really, really busy. So happy with that.
Are you getting into train with these individuals?
Yeah, for sure.
Getting into rolling?
Yeah.
Now, I found, after getting my black belt and then training with people, there kind of is a bullseye on you when you're in there. How do you know? People just want to tear you. They see you. Okay, that's a black belt. You're the UFC fighter. You know what? I want to roll with that person, and then they're actually going.
My tactic is
that
easy.
level.
Easy. Those beginner guys, no problem.
Yeah.
But against other skilled guys, and this is a good thing training in other places, I pull up, and the first day I let them do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And then, or maybe whatever they want if they're really good, and I'll take somebody who's less than me and let them work, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, this guy's nice. He's cool. He's not here to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
And then you can pick it up.
Yeah.
But if you come in, there's always going to be a little bit of a little turf, turf war. Like, you're not from my gym. Who's this guy? Black belt. So I come in very relaxed, no problem. After a couple of days, you'll pick it up.
Yeah.
You know who's who, and then you're in a more friendly energy, and you can kind of exchange.
Yeah.
But the first day, it's going to be a war if you come in and put your A game on. And just not really going to work out.
Oh yeah. I remember going to a gym in London, and I hadn't wrestled or hadn't done jiu-jitsu in a bit. Was off for a bit, and I ended up rolling with somebody, and they went at me like 120%.
1,000 miles an hour. Yeah. They heard about you. They seen you. You got the black belt. They heard all about you. That was my chance.
But that's the one thing that kind of really pushes me away from training with lower belts. Yeah. But now, with that kind of advice you're talking about, it's probably a better approach.
For sure. Yeah. Or guys don't train with the lower belts. A lot of times people don't do that, but it's exactly like you said. Your iron sharpens iron, but not everyone is at the same level to start. So the new crazy guy who comes in, he's the guy who's going to likely hurt you, doing something crazy or hurt himself. Mm-hmm. So it's not really beneficial training. Like I'm 40 now, so I want to have good training in terms of technique.
Yeah.
I don't want to go in there and just sweat on a guy. Done that already. So I'm looking for somebody who's going to stimulate my training mentally and at the same time give me the good workout that I want. So I know the guys I'm looking for pretty much.
That's good. Maybe I'm going to steal your philosophy.
Yeah, you don't want to go and rumble with everybody. Oh, this guy, because they're all looking for you, right?
Yeah.
So,
you've got that bullseye. In fact, I think when you get your black belt, you should probably put a bullseye on
legitimately,
the back of your gi. So So you're still training. You're working as a professional now. You've got your gym. What else are you doing?
Just that. Fatherhood Academy. So the gym's there. Freelancing with the digital marketing, building my skill set there. Yeah. And just trying to build the jiu-jitsu in the scene. Yeah. Still working on that.
Nice. Digital marketing. Tell me a little bit about that.
SEO, search engine optimization, helping websites get found. So if you got a website, a product, a service, or something, and it's a billion pages on the internet, you want to be found, I specialize in helping you get out there.
Okay. And is that your own business, or do you want to pump it here or there?
Yeah. So I'm TO Fresh SEO. So TO, the word fresh, SEO.com.
Okay. And do you have any screen, Twitter accounts, Instagram that you want?
No, I'm pretty low key on that. Not so much.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I'm trying to actually duck all that because with my digital marketing, it hurt me a bit. They Google my name, see all this MMA stuff. I'm smashing some guy. Most of the tech people are a little bit on the softer side, so they're like, I don't want to work with that guy. So I switched up my alias online. I'm just kind of being low key there and building the new profile of Claude Patrick. So
that's awesome, man. Yeah. Well, it's a pleasure having you here, man.
Always good.
I appreciate taking the time out of your day to come down. I know you've got a family, you got work. I mean, sometimes it's hard to get down to these things.
I'm running there right now. I got to go pick her up.
Awesome. Yep. And she's you said she
4 years old.
4 years old, and she's probably the light of your life.
Apple of my eye, light of my life. You're a father, amazing.
Yeah. Best thing in the world, man. It's better than a UFC champ.
Literally, 10 times better.
Okay. Thanks there, Claude.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Yep.